Let's introduce ourselves first to this whole new room full of people. So,
Me first this time?
sure.
Okay. My name is Jennifer Bell, and I'm not supposed to be up here, but Kat said sit your ass down, so I sat my ass down. And let's play it this way. You guys are going to convince me that I need to be listening to this podcast because I don't currently listen to it.
Okay, good.
I warned you.
On my charming and delightful right, we have the charming and delightful.
I'm Alyson Leslie. For those of you that were in the last session, I'm not really on the panel of every session. It's true. I'm from just outside Dundee in Scotland.
I'm Kat. Hi. And I'm a musician, an actor, a cosplayer, a general nuisance, and this panel was my idea. I must say right off the bat that I am not caught up. And okay, disclaimer: I love that the podcast exists. And I think it's fantastic that they are doing it, and it's brought a lot of people back to the fold, and it's brought a lot of. I love that it exists. Now, then we can get to my but about it. Anyway, give me your thoughts on it.
I really like the podcast because although The West Wing is very popular in the United Kingdom, it's not as big a deal as it is in the United States. I mean, it's very interesting. I was just talking to someone who was asking me about Outlander, and Outlander is not as big in the UK as it is in the US. And because of that, there are not many forums in which I can engage with other people or hear about other people whose love of the West Wing is as deep and as abiding as mine. And for that reason, the podcast has been great for me because it's made me rewatch it. It's given me the sense that there are all these other people out there that have the same love for the series. And I guess if you were planning to set it up from scratch, would Josh and Rishi be the pair that you would go for? Well, maybe not, but I tend to take it that we are where we are, so maybe they reflect the fandom, those who take it terribly seriously and prepare avidly and know sort of every scene and every person, and those that just come to it and engage with it episode by episode and, you know, take it and sort of react to it more spontaneously. It's my Monday ritual to listen to it. On Monday I do a sort of 2-hour round trip to visit a cousin who's in a care facility, and to pass the journey I always listen to the podcast, and it takes me that amount of time because I switch it off when I get to difficult bits of the road, and there are bits also I go back because I'm concentrating on traffic and I miss, and I go back and listen to it, and it's just become part of my life, and it really sort of makes it a very sort of calm and pleasant Monday thinking about the West Wing.
It does that for me some of the time. I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with it. I love it if they have a guest on. I learned that if they don't have a guest on and it's just the two of them, I just skip it. I skip the episode. I see a lot of people nodding their heads, so it's not just me. They just get really entertained by themselves and up their own asses and just.
Have you ever listened to a Gilmore Guys episode? Because I think this is so much better than I started listening to that and I couldn't anymore because they have no boundaries, they don't follow anything, and they bring on guests who've never watched Gilmore Girls before, and I know Rishi is a fan of West Wing Weekly, and I think they're much more disciplined in terms of like time, like it'll be maybe a little over an hour or so, and then
well, yeah, I mean,
they keep the topic. I mean, they go off and they're a little quirky sometimes, but yeah, because they do the guests and everything.
Well, Rishi is the one who keeps the focus.
Yeah.
He's the one who drives the thing, and Melina just sort of shows up and makes dad jokes, and that's fine. But like, make your joke. You should not be making your joke 5 minutes later. You know, make your joke the one time and stop. And if you don't have something to say, that's fine. Either find someone who has something to say, or just don't say anything, but don't fill up the episode with sound bites from Game of Thrones. I think that was where they lost me when they did, and it was season 1, so they were still getting on their feet, but when they did He Shall From Time to Time, which will always have a very, very special, important place in my heart. I have MS, and it, so, and I had actually messaged them. I had and said, hey, if you don't have anybody more important, I've been on podcasts and I have a perspective, and and they never heard, and I never heard back, which is fine. And I'm like, okay, fine, that's cool. But they didn't have anybody better. They didn't have anybody else at all, and so there was nothing. And then when they went on and they did the Stackhouse filibuster, and they let people call in and talk about their experiences with autism, and that was great. That was really great. Where was that for freaking MS, please? I left a message on their website when they were coming up on 17 people, and I left them all right, guys, look. And I said whatever I said, and I said, don't fuck this up. And they didn't, and it was amazing. It was fantastic. They had, if they have Richard Schiff on, it's always amazing.
Yeah.
And he cries, and it's always amazing. And you learn so much, and everybody has a John Spencer story. Aww. And they're all like, my heart, like Joanna Gleason's on, and she's talking about, when they're filming the episode where she and Leo were dancing together, and he asked her to sing.
Oh, okay, I'm gonna cry.
So, it's some really, really wonderful things that some the stories that have come out but I wish that they would rein in a little bit of their own getting their rocks off. Because, look, I'm as scatterbrained as the next person, and more so than many, and it's taken work for me to learn how to do one of these things and stay on topic, and not tangent off into the stratosphere and go, okay, but that's a whole nother panel. We're going to stay here, And left to his own devices, Hrishi is, I think, better about that. I feel bad for saying it, but the episode with Lin-Manuel Miranda and Tommy Kail, how good was that? Okay, that was amazing. Melina wasn't in it.
Oh.
Because they were out for the Oscars. They were out in LA for the Oscars, and Melina was on the East Coast. And so it was just them and Hrishi, and it was just this focused thing.
Okay.
And it was great. And so, yeah. Talk to me. I've been going for a while.
I'm just interested in what other folk have got to.
Sorry, I think we're opening to the press.
Yeah. On you go.
I would say I hated it from the get-go because the talking stuff was new. But it was a podcast about a year before that really delved into what you could learn from each episode. And after a year, that podcast stopped doing it because it was competing too much with this one, which was brain getting too much, a lot more fans.
Yeah.
And so I did go away for a while, and recently come back. I think the strength of the program is when they do the live show. I love listening to the and the guests. So that's all I said to you.
Yeah.
How many people here were at the live here in DC?
Okay, lots of jealous going on right now.
I had tickets for the New York one, and I wound up not going.
Were the live shows purely what we heard on the podcast, or was there more to them?
It was pretty on point.
Yeah, it was pretty on point. Yeah, although I think the live added a dimension.
Yeah, and there were visual cues that were like at ours, and I know in Boston there was something where Josh Molina was wearing baby's phone hats. Somebody gave him like a blue knitted hat that he was wearing, but it wasn't clear from the audio phone.
Brad Whitford did a split.
Yeah.
There's
Yes.
a photo.
Yeah.
That was something to see live.
And they do, you don't hear as much of the applause. I've seen two of them in San Francisco. And the one where they were discussing Posse Comitatus, the third season finale, Aaron Sorkin was there. And they all say, about the scene with CJ in Times Square. wasn't Alyson Janney great? Applause, applause, applause. And he said, yeah. Isn't Alyson Janney great? Applause, applause. And the curtain moves and Alyson Janney, you don't hear a third of the applause. And I confirmed with my friend, I did apparently actually shriek like Bobby Sausage.
Because she is queen.
Well,
Because Queen Alyson.
On the Big Block of Cheese Day, I got to play Charlie on trivia against Dule Hill on stage.
Oh, wow.
A little bit, part of my thing was visual, but.
Wow.
And I got a big block of cheese from Josh Molina.
Wow.
Excellent.
You missed the when here in DC, of course, when Alyson Janney called in, you know, the sense in the audience, like, heard the audience just kind of all of a sudden it ramped up, you know, it was.
And we were trying to be very quiet so we could hear her, but it was
Right.
headphones.
Yeah.
if you're just walking in, there's plenty of seats up here. I don't want to make you stand in the back if you don't want to. If you prefer to stand in the back, that's perfectly fine, but I want to give you options.
We bathed.
I promise, this isn't a Gallagher show. You're not going to get anything on you if you sit in the first 3 rows.
I don't smell bad. Yes.
I just want to give my full defense of the podcast.
Yeah.
I love it. I love every single piece of it. And I think it's because I don't really have anybody other than my little nerdy Facebook like going on and posting things. Anybody who saw the hot dog projection, I posted it. I don't know if anybody saw that. But I don't really have anyone to talk to. So the way that they talk like idiots is how I talk. And so I don't mind that because I feel like I'm in conversation with them, and in my head I'm like, yeah, that's right. Oh my gosh, that's a stupid dad joke. Oh, Josh, you crazy kid. You know, like, it has a flow. It's a ridiculous, silly one. I was listening to one on the plane yesterday, and like I was so embarrassed because I was shaking. I was laughing so hard. It was such a stupid thing to laugh at. It was on a recent one, and Rishi was talking about the presidential portrait, and he called it a portlet on accident, and I was just like shaking. I was laughing so hard at him saying portlet. I don't know, but I think for the reasons that it drives you crazy, I love it.
And that's completely valid.
Can I ask you, if it had a more definite sort of repeated structure, so that every week there was a guest, every week they looked at each act of the episode, sort of act by act, in a sort of logical way, instead of would you like it better then? Is it the lack of structure that's an unpredictability of it that's jarring for
It's
you?
not that there isn't structure. It's when they fight against structure because they're so amused by themselves. You know, it's when because Rishi, you know, he makes really keen observations, and he's a good interviewer. He asks good things. Also, you know, it may be that I'm coming at it from a different sort of perspective because I've done this sort of thing an awful lot, and I've done, you know, interviews with people and the like, and I'm like, y'all better be better than me at this. You know, y'all, come on now, y'all be better than me. You're supposed to be better than me. And when I sit there and I'm like, you know, that just probably makes me cringe a little more than I want it to. But again, I mean, I opened by saying there are times when I absolutely love it. You know, there have been times when it has brought me to tears. There are times when I, you know, want to turn it into a drinking game, because that would help. Yes.
So just to give you some support there, West Wing ended in 2007. I went to work for the federal government in 2008, thinking that everyone was going to be smarter. So if you're good at that, be good at that. I mean, honestly, it's okay that you're better than that, because I go to work every day and you know, I'm smarter than some of the people that I really expected to be smarter than. And I really hope would be smarter than me because they're running our country.
Yeah, well, yeah. Politics, boy, I don't know. And that's the closest I'm going to come to saying anything about that. Yes, go on.
Well, I mean, I understand. I like hearing like to go on to your point. I mean, I also don't have a whole lot of people to talk to about the episode. So I kind of like looking at each episode in a different perspective. But I also think a lot like you do. I don't catch all the episodes of the podcast. You know, I do like it when they have the guests, you know, on. That does make it, it does change it up and make it more interesting for me. But I remember I met Bradley Whitford over, he was at the Frederick Keys game about a year or two ago. And I asked him, I said, are you going to ever be on the podcast? And I said, I know Noelle's coming up, you know, and of course I'd love to hear your perspective. So I was kind of hoping that Bradley Whitford would give a little more perspective about that episode. Turned out not quite so much, but still, I mean, it's.
Well, he's been on a couple of times,
Yeah,
though.
yeah.
And, I mean, a lot of it is him and Melina snarking each other.
Yeah.
You know, because, like, that's their relationship, and it's funny, and, you know, in that, I don't care. Because then they're tossing a ball back and forth, and then it's, you know, I guess it's just better. Because Melina's a pretty funny guy. And so I think when he has Whitford to play off of, even when they get distracted, then I don't care as much because I'm laughing, so it's fine. It's mostly the Game of Thrones sound bites that I just had a problem with.
I think that I was so excited when I heard about it and when I discovered it. And then, you know, for the first season, if you will, what they've done with it and what Rishi's done to, you know, make everything relevant again, and whether it's bringing up people who were involved with the policy back when that thing was actually happening, or, you know, someone working in those similar roles now, and giving and not just talking about the actors and not just talking about the content. Like it just kind of blew the whole thing up for me.
Yeah.
And there are times when, and I think that it just opened this whole dialogue, and I'm sure a lot of us are here because of that. I think it just, you know, it helped facilitate the, you know, kind of rebirth of it all. But it, you know, they can get kind of, you know, but they're volunteering. I mean, they're not making a ton of money. I'm sure they're covering their costs, but it's not like this is their primary paycheck, and they're having fun with it. And they're two friends from college, which I think is really cool, you know. So, you know, I cut them a little slack. Not every show's the best one.
They're not friends from college. Melina's a lot older than Rishi.
You know, but they knew each other. They knew each other. Connections.
Yeah, and the thing that you're saying about, I love those episodes where I get to learn something, you know, whether it's about the West Wing or not. In fact, sometimes when it's not about, that's like, those are the best ones, where like when they were doing the episode where they were talking about human trafficking, and they had that guy on for Operation whatever that is, like I went home and I gave him money, you know, and that senator who from Pennsylvania or something, who used to be pro gun, he was not into gun control, and then after Sandy Hook happened, he was like, no, I'm changing my policy on that, and you know, whatever, because I don't follow politics. I try to avoid it because it depresses me, especially now. So, but yeah, I thought it was amazing learning stuff like that, or, you know, being what it's like being the president's body man, or being, you know, the speechwriter or whatever. I mean, some of those things are fantastic. I loved even the early one when they had, what was it, the props person or one of the set dressers or something like that, and talking about, oh my God, details that I had no idea, and then went back and was like, I want to see that. That was so cool. So, no, I mean, again, for all of it, I'll say it again, and that's why it was the first thing that I said. I do like it a lot, and I think it's a great thing. There are just parts of it that make my ass ache. Okay, yes.
I think some of the production things, like the Hollywood view of it, is really fascinating to me. Like, I had no idea what went into, like, who gets credited and what order, and, you know, just making the shows and certain shots and how they're done and different styles of filming. Like, I never thought about any of that. So it's really opened my eyes to how you actually film a show and how that changes how the audience takes it in.
I think one of the difficulties I find with the show is that because it is this sort of semi-professional setup, it obviously doesn't have the resources to do a lot of things you'd like them to do. And one of the things that strikes me is that there's not as much engagement with the listeners and the fans as there might be, because when you hear the live events and things like you were describing where people sort of stand up and ask questions, and often sometimes when you flick through the comments on the website, there's some really interesting points there that you wish they would take up, and even about particular episodes. And it seems to me that if they had a slightly different sort of way of being organised, or a slightly different sort of kind of machine behind them, there might be more proactive planning. Right, we've got Noel coming up, so let's look at this. Or we've got sort of 17 people coming up, let's get sort of people on who can talk about MS, people who can talk about public health policy and so on. And I don't know if this is just my impression or whether this actually happened, but it seems to me that since we've moved into the post-Sorkin period, where, and the revelation that Rishi hadn't seen any of the ones, after sort of season 4, came as a bit of a sort of shock. But it seems that there's been fewer guests and fewer policy people on. I mean, there's been some very good ones on, like the one the lady talking about social security, but there's not been as many people from the cast, or even, as you were saying, people that tell you about the props or the design. And I mean, there are people that we've not heard from. I would love to have Stockard Channing on, because I think Abby Bartlett is a fabulous character, and there were some amazing Abby episodes that...
I don't think they can afford her. I mean, let the queen. But no, I absolutely agree with you.
Yeah.
My gosh, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
Just to respond to your last point, I often wonder if the challenge of producing the show and having those kind of things isn't built into the name, West Wing Weekly. I mean, I put a podcast together for kids, and I know what a challenge it is to edit that down.
Sure.
And so I wonder if they just have too much on their plate to try to get all that stuff in line.
Well, I know that for things like, I mean, how cool was it when they had the Canadian Prime Minister?
Oh, wow.
How cool was that, right? And they were like, okay, we're going kind of out of order, because I started requesting, Rishi started courting this guy in like a year ago, and I didn't think I'd get him ever. And so we're not really going to talk about, we're going to talk about the episode, but mostly we're going to do this thing about something that we did before, or something like that. I don't remember, but it was amazing. It was so good, and he's adorable. Yeah.
Sorry, I was going to say I really appreciated that. They do their like Trump I moments and things like that. And I think just because as someone who walks around every day and is like, oh, that's a Western reference. Oh, that's a Western reference. Like, it is somewhat comforting that I am not necessarily the only person doing that. And, I think it's really interesting. Speaking of something recently they had, because they had the Christmas episode from season 5, so they had, I forget the name of the person who now does a lot of work with the aid in dying stuff, and so just learning about those policies that you don't hear about every day. They don't make the front page news for those kinds of advocacy work.
That's very true. Over there.
I also find it's helpful when they're critical. I had gone back and tried to rewatch, starting with the first season of my own, and I just kept sort of cringing at some of the misogynistic undertones that pop up a lot, and having them say out loud, like, this is not cool now, sort of helped me get past that.
See, I don't know. I'm always like, you guys need to stop trying to be my ally, because you stink at it. Every time they try to be my ally, I'm like, just stop. When they're sitting there dissing on the president and Leo at the end of Crackpots and These Women, because they're admiring, they're not saying they're hot babes. They're admiring what they can. First of all, I understand that that's how it is with men of a certain age. They're talking to each other. They're not skeezing. They're not saying, oh, look at her ass. They're appreciating the strength and the amazingness of these women that are not the type of women that they grew up with. And I love that. I absolutely love that, yeah.
I came in a little late, but basically what I was going to say is that it's kind of piggybacking off of that. Like, so when I listen, the Crackpots and These Women and Special Navigation are 2 of my absolute favorite episodes. And I was really looking forward to the podcast episodes of them, and I didn't listen to them during the first airing of the podcast, so I went back. And they kind of, those particular 2 podcast episodes
nitpicky about like the misogyny in Crab House Against Women, or like in Celestial Navigation, it was kind of like, oh well, this wouldn't have happened, like he wouldn't have been doing this, and like I work in the government and I can probably agree with the timeline of events and all that happened, but at the same time I'm like, yeah, but it's entertainment. So I kind of like how the podcast, I kind of like how there are candid moments in the podcast, because I like the dynamic between Richie and Josh and Melina, but also because it kind of then, like I love it when they're talking about the actual show, but it kind of makes it so that, they're not going to just kind of like pick apart completely everything. And, since then, like I'll listen to those episodes of the podcast, but I'll be like, okay, but I still like the television show as entertainment, because it's a show, first and foremost. Like, it's
Sure.
not.
Sure. Be over there.
I feel like they do it to each other, where it's like one that Rishi really likes, and then Josh kind of ruins it for him.
Well,
and
that
the
Josh
other way around.
ruins it.
So again, it
Yeah.
goes back to, I feel like having a conversation with them.
Yeah, over here.
And I'm kind of in the middle of the, please read the disclaimer scrolling across the bottom of your screen. I'm not disagreeing with you in any way. And I am glad when they point out stuff that's sexist and misogynist and doesn't play nowadays. I don't always agree with their interpretation of it, because I think there are instances, some of them, yes, no question. Some of them, I feel like it's a little bit more self-aware meta-comedy, where they're making fun of them. I'll take it out of the sexism realm. When Leo and the president are going to have dinner together, and the president says they thought Abby was going to be here, so we'll just pretend there are no candles and flowers. Oh, and they were not paranoid homophobes in any way. As a queer man, I'm completely unoffended by that. They're older guys. They're saying we're of a generation where we're uncomfortable being perceived that way, but we know it's wrong to be uncomfortable being perceived.
So they're owning it.
The president knows the Democratic Women's Caucus doesn't talk about sewing notions. He and the First Lady giving each other the business, and But yes, there are other times when, it's like, why did you even go there? And there are other times where I think that they're making fun of themselves.
I love Josh telling the story about Aaron Sorkin. That was Aaron Sorkin making fun of himself when they went to have dinner.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, I think that Aaron Sorkin is one of the good guys as far as women are concerned. I believe that he is one of the good guys. And that said, I feel that sometimes the fetters of his gender, the perspective of his own gender, show a little more than he'd like them to, so things get clumsy. I love with all my soul Ainsley. Well, I love Ainsley, but I love Ainsley talking about the ERA, and when she gets up in what's-her-face's face, Celia's face, about, would you stop? He's not harassing me. He's my coworker. He's playing with me in a way that isn't bothering me in the slightest, and shut up and stop trying to ruin my day. And the thing about how Knucklehead Revolution takes focus away from real revolution, and I think that sort of peters out, because Aaron, again, he's got it and he's got it and he's got it, and then he sort of loses it. So I want to stay on the topic, because that's a whole nother panel that we're talking about there. But there have been some times when I've had to be like, okay, yeah, that one I don't love. Like some of the ones where, I don't know, they're always, Tricia and Josh are always dissing on the whole Josh and Donna thing, when Josh is a schmuck to her, which he often is. Let's be real. He is. I'm not a particular Josh and Donna shipper. I was a little sad when they both separately came on the podcast and said, oh yeah, from the very beginning we were playing it like a couple. And I'm like, well, crap. There goes the bro ship that I always had. Damn it. I mean, in the end when they thought, okay, fine, sure, good for them. But I didn't need it. I like it when they're friends. I don't want to read into CJ and Toby's relationship. I like it when they're bros. Thank you. I like it when people just be bros. Anyway, so I don't know. I think that this is a whole long way around of saying we need to give Aaron Sorkin a little more credit for being an ally, and I think that that when they get nitpicky, that it takes away from the big picture of, but he's a good guy. Nobody ever said he was perfect, you know?
They're not saying that they're still Aaron Sorkin fans themselves.
Yeah.
So it's just, they put it into today's perspective. And, you know, it's an II moment. It's become a regular thing. And Aaron Sorkin has been criticized by a broader audience about, you know, his treatment of women that might be just exaggerated and clumsy admiration.
Yeah, we were talking about that in the last panel too, and I've never found him sexist at all. It doesn't bother me at all. You know, when CJ's dealing with Albie Duncan and says, you know, so now, you know, there's this little crotchety old guy, and now may I get an attractive aide to bring you some Schweppes Bitter Lemon? I mean, I'm sorry, you're going to get places by charming an old guy. You just are. That's how the world is. Carol, go to work. I'm on it. Nobody ever said sleep with him. You know? I don't know. We got a little away from it, so somebody else say something.
So, oh,
I just want to harp back on how Rishi is terrible now, because he admittedly has admitted that he hasn't watched past season 4, to which I say, well then can you find us a new host, because I think anyone else in this room has probably seen past season 4.
Has it affected his...
I think so, because I kind of looked at it as, since Melina wasn't a fan and doesn't have the geeky knowledge that the rest of us do, Rishi is kind of carrying Josh along through the podcast, and by having to re-explain the episode to Josh, it's deepening the layers of the episodes and the plots and the behind-the-scenes stuff. And now that Rishi doesn't have that innate knowledge, Rishi for the first 4 seasons probably didn't have to rewatch the episode before he filmed the podcast. He knew what was going to be in that episode, just like the rest of us do. So now that Rishi has to watch it and learn it and know it for the first time, he can't help Josh through the whole thing.
Yeah.
And that's, now they're both too new at the show now, and then that makes it unenjoyable for me, since I do know the show very well. Now they're missing things and not dwelling on things and going into things where I'm like, well, no, you brush past that too fast. Let's talk about this some more.
They really I've said this from the beginning, though, they really should consider incorporating some fan things, like especially if Rishi hasn't seen, I didn't know that because I'm not caught up, but like if he hasn't seen past season 4, then you know what, open up your website and have your fans suggest some things for y'all to talk about.
Yeah.
Let's try that.
Because I think conversely to what you're saying, it's not just that there's not the same preparedness and sort of depth of knowledge and linking with the past. It's also some things that have, you know, jarred with me is that he gets terribly excited about things that you know are going to go nowhere. I mean, like he seems to think that Rena is going to be a major character, and Rena goes to Mandeville. And you know, you've thought, think, oh, poor Rishi, he's going to be terribly disappointed. And it's things like that would never have happened earlier on, that you feel there's been lots of discussions about it. You think, this isn't worth the time, sort of, guys, because, you know, she's not going to be around.
I think my favorite Rishi episode was when they did Isaac and Ishmael. I thought that was amazing and provided perspective from, and they had, what's his name, who was, and how cool was it that he named his character after his favorite rapper? And that Aaron Sorkin let him. How cool was that? But anyway, it was perspective that I had never thought of, and I thought it was fascinating. Yes, go on.
So I was going to say that I was at the podcast taping in New York City with Aaron Sorkin, and apparently that Rishi mentioned on the podcast taping in season 1 that he had to watch past season 4 when he asked me. And at that podcast taping, when he said that he had not seen seasons 5, 6, and 7, I was floored. I almost was like hearing Charlie Brown teacher voice coming from But you haven't seen it, how could you not have? And I waited a good couple, 3-4 months before I dug into the podcast episodes of starting season 5. And I was really worried about it. And I do like the podcast, and I know a little problems with it, and they do go off on tangents. And sometimes they get a little too negative, but I love their interaction between the two of them. But what I found now, listening to the season 5 episodes, is that I'm almost appreciating watching it through someone's eyes anew, because I've long since passed that point that I can't do that anymore. So I'm looking at Rishi a little more now as you're experiencing what I felt in 2003 or 2004 or 2005, and I'm looking at it from that point of view just a little bit. They do get a little nitpicky, but I still love them.
That's a really good way to look at it. And I'm not caught up, but that's going to make me feel better about launching into season 5.
Maybe it can extend after they get done with the first, with all seasons, and then just do 5 years of them. Yeah. I don't think that. I haven't watched season 5 really all that much. Certainly not as in depth as 1 through 4. So I feel like it would be. And I don't rewatch the episodes before I listen to the podcast because I can't watch just one episode at a time. So it would be 2 times for me. So I think that basically I would be looking at it through fresh eyes as well.
The other thing about season 5 is that Richie didn't watch it because Sorkin left. So he kind of had the view that a lot of people expressed were like, oh, it's complete crap in season 5. It's not going to be worth it. So it's interesting to see that it's redeeming, I think, season 5 a little bit.
Yeah.
For someone who has a really low set of expectations and preconceived notions on what this is going to be watching this and noticing that there's good things going on.
I mean, it's still the West Wing.
Yeah.
We still love these people. We still care about these people. Okay, all of a sudden, nobody quotes Gilbert and Sullivan anymore, and everybody is quoting Shakespeare. What? That's new. Yeah. What's everybody's favorite episode of the podcast?
The only one I've listened to twice is In Excelsis Deo, and hearing Richard Schiff cry.
Oh.
Hold on, I'm making notes now.
The emotions of the
Anything
moment
that he's on, any episode that Schiff is
guy
on.
thing.
Yeah, any episode that Richard Schiff is on.
I think the Harlem America where they have the cast interview with John Spencer. And
Yeah.
choking up, and you can actually even hear, I feel like Rishi and Josh, choking up at this memory of John Spencer talking about the impact of this episode and everything. And, it left me in tears. I just like listening to John Spencer's voice. I don't know if you play this. Just listen to his voice.
I don't remember which one it is. I think it's the first one that Aaron Sorkin was on, but he have me back anytime. There's nothing much more that I love than talking about what's going all the time, and that's kind of what I feel. So I like that one. But you had played Justin Trudeau's episode for me. I think it was right after I actually got back from Canada. Before I went up there, and I didn't get to meet him, but my boss shook hands with Justin Trudeau. I was just floored. And then he was also talking about how we were at this really big international festival, and yeah, he had bodyguards and stuff with him, but he wasn't unapproachable in any means, and just hearing him on the podcast was oh my gosh, so fresh air,
Yeah. He's just this guy.
You have a leader of the country that is inclusive and is just not saying I was in the area of Canada that was not super inclusive, but not saying that the country doesn't have problems, but he's just inclusive and noble-minded and everything. I'm just we actually exist anymore.
I loved the Hamilton episodes.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
They were so articulate about how the ideals of the West Wing impacted them without, I love geeking out about it here as much as but I like that they were articulate and discussing it without sounding weirdly obsessive about it. Was a good balance and just so refreshing and made me feel better about when I do geek out about it because I'm clearly this is a good show to because it has had this impact on the people on these people, so just and of course separate from West Wing, I love Hamilton too, so just hearing them come together and just he was so articulate about how it impacted him
And he's such, having Lynn on was having a fan on. You know, he's just like super successful and has his own thing that has its own fans. But really, he's like a great big screaming fanboy. At when he went in to do the DuckTales thing, he's like, okay, but he tweets like, oh my God, but you guys, CJ Craig is in the building. David Tennant did the exact same thing. It's freaking adorable. I want to get the two of them in a room, just to talk about the freaking West Wing, because that's amazing.
The room where it happens?
That would be the room where it happens. Absolutely, my God.
Also, if anyone's looking for a good laugh, the one where they interview both interview Alyson Janney and the actress who played Mary Coates-Roquet, and I to my advisor at school, I'm in graduate school, so we had a meeting about my academic future, which was just us sitting there going, I am Mary Coates-Roquet. We were like, okay, maybe we should meet at Starbucks, not in the building because everyone's going to hear us. But yeah, hearing that and just being able to relive that, but then also hear that other people are reliving it, and then just hearing Alyson Janney laugh, I could laugh
Forever.
Yeah.
The one with young Mrs. Landingham, I don't remember the name.
That's Kristen Nielsen. Kristen Nielsen.
That was a beautiful episode too.
And just hearing her talking about it and hearing her, about how she got cast and
And that they knew each other.
yeah.
Real sweet.
I think that is one of the things that I really love about it, that they always ask people their origin story.
Yeah.
And these stories are always engaging. You just want to hear more and more. Yeah.
What's your West Wing origin story?
My West Wing origin story goes back to the origin of the internet. In 1990, end of 91, 92, I think there were 6 people on the internet. I was one of them, and another was a young woman in Champaign, Illinois, and we ended up having a conversation on what was then Rec Arts TV. Most of you are too young to remember it, about Hill Street Blues. And cut a long story short, 30 years later,
I watched
nearly
almost all of Hill Street Blues last year.
30 years later, sort of, we are the best of friends, and we gave up on the internet sort of a long time ago and started phoning each other every month, which we continue to do. And because of our love of Hill Street Blues, when the West Wing came out, she went out and I think it was after it had been on for a couple of seasons, and bought the DVDs and sent them to me. And said, you've got to watch this. If you loved Hill Street Blues, you will love this. And that was how it started. I sat and watched, I think something like 12 episodes in a day, put it down, and just loved it. And I think I had to go out and buy a DVD player that played, or it was videotapes, and I had to go out and buy one that played sort of American tapes. That was how obsessed I got by it, yeah.
What about you? What was your West Wing origin story?
I caught it in a rerun when it was it was still on the air, but I caught it in a rerun one day. TV station was marathoning it on a Sunday, and I was in college, and I was at my mom's house, which is 4 hours away from where I went to college, and my mom's like, you got to go. You got to drive 4 hours. You got to be in class tomorrow where you're supposed to be. I'm like, no, I got to watch this show. I couldn't tell you which episodes it was. I think it was in season 1, because I can remember watching what kind of day it's been, and immediately going into the shadow of 2 gunmen.
Well,
so I didn't have to wait. I didn't have to wait that season
I'll watch
break.
one more episode and then I'll go to bed, and then they start shooting people at 4 a.m. when you're sure that everyone's going to be okay. You're like, okay, I can go to bed now.
Yeah, exactly. So I can remember the West Wing started a fight between me and my mom because I wouldn't leave her house to go back to college because it's like, no, there's another episode coming on. You don't understand. So it was an immediate obsession, and then picking it up. So I had a gap in between where I caught it in reruns and then caught the episodes as they were airing. So that was me. What was yours?
Well, mine is a little... I had family and friends who were very, very into it, and they all said, you should watch this. And I said, I have no interest in a show about the inner workings of the White House. And then in 2003, they told me I had MS, and they said, you should watch this because the president. And I said, I really don't want to watch this now because for the same reason that hypochondriacs shouldn't watch House. The last thing I need is to see some fictional character having symptoms that I may or may not personally have, because then I'm going to have them. But it made me feel weirdly better that even on a TV show that was a thing. You know, that like the thought of, hey, he's running the country. He has way more stress than I do. And, you know, if even a fictional president could live with this, then so could I. And so I didn't watch it then, but knowing about it helped. And then finally, I broke down and I watched it because I was working in a summer camp and I didn't have any TV reception. My brother knew that, so he gave me the DVDs. I was like, crap.
So you didn't really volunteer to watch West Wing. You kind of got forced into it, right?
Yeah, but the thing is that like I didn't, it wasn't time, you know, I didn't start watching it until like I'd already been living with the MS for a few years and I think West Wing was over by then. So like I resisted. And what's great is that West Wing taught me that just because I don't have any interest in the premise, if the writing is that freaking good, the premise doesn't matter. Exhibit B, Breaking Bad. I was so not interested in the premise of Breaking Bad, and I love it that Richard Schiff is always bringing up Breaking Bad, by the way, as like the other example of really good writing on television. He's not wrong. But I rejected that out of hand based on premise also, and like now it's one of my favorite things. Yeah.
What you were just saying about that, it brought me up a point where it's some of my favorite, I wouldn't say episodes because it's a theme that comes up a lot, but a lot of my favorite moments of the podcast are when they'll interview different actors and guest actors that were on the show, and, you know, some are more, I'm drawn to like particular actors right now, but some would come in and they would like try to put their like creative bent on it or something like that, or like be like, and then it's just funny to hear the stories when it was like, yeah, no, you don't do that, like where Aaron Sorkin was but they were like floating an idea about Aaron Sorkin, and he was like very polite about it. He's like, let me think about it, but then he'd be like, yeah, no.
Where somebody said something about, you want to know what my character's favorite joke is? And Sorkin's like, I didn't write it, so whatever you think it is, you're wrong.
Yeah, the writing is just so on point.
Yeah. Corner, and then you decide. Go ahead.
People ask that question about what's your West Wing origin story. Mine is, NBC said, there's this new drama that is going to be on in September, and you should watch it. I mean, I just saw the advertisements and go, that looks interesting, and started watching it like you normally do. But I think because there's different people who are alive or old enough to care or whatever and have come into it. Does anybody else just saw it and like watched it from the very beginning like a normal television show? Okay. And doesn't have a sexy origin story. I mean, I didn't have it in my life when I wouldn't be here, but I just feel like I should have something stronger than, I don't know, NBC's marketing.
Who cares? You're here. I mean, you're here. However you got here. I'm glad that you didn't have my story. I mean, God. Yeah.
I can't remember when I started what episode I started watching on, but I know it's the reason that when someone tells me this new show that's being broadcast now is really, really good, I refuse to watch it until it's done. I wouldn't watch Breaking Bad till it was on streaming because it sounded good. Because you know the scene in all the movies where the camera comes from above and the person looks up and goes, no! That was me on a Wednesday night if I couldn't be home and realized I had to put a tape in the VCR. Can't go through it again. Except The Good Doctor because Richard Schiff.
Did you live through Twin Peaks?
But I do tell them, when someone says I've never seen it, I don't know if I like it or not, I always tell them, it's less than a 3-hour commitment, watch the first 3 episodes. Pilot to when Charlie comes in. You're not hooked then, I don't think you're going to be.
Yeah.
That's my feeling.
Okay, yeah. Okay, we have time for one more. Take us home.
Pressure. Well, I like what you were saying about like not caring for the premise, but it being such good writing. I definitely relate to that too. But something I love, like my favorite West Wing fan I ever met is this guy. His name is Mike Okuda. He worked as a graphic designer mostly on the Star Trek series.
Yeah, I've heard of him.
And he worked like from the movies all the way, from like the original series movies all the way to the end of the thing. And Star Trek is my other favorite show ever.
He wrote the book on Klingon, didn't he?
Kind of. He worked on like all the like computer screens that you see. Like he designed the like look of the next generation computers and stuff. Anyway, so he said The West Wing is the best Star Trek series since the original series.
Wow.
Like, the same idea, the same reason, like, everyone loves Star Trek, of being such like a beautiful hope for the future and being a beautiful vision of what we can be and living up to your potential. Like the West Wing is just the same thing. It just takes place in the present in White House instead of in the future on a spaceship. But so it's like the same ideas, the same ensemble, the same idea of working together and hope for the future. And I was like, that is such a good way to put it. So like the way you said that, like best Star Trek.
I would compare the West Wing more to Next Generation, I think, than the original series.
Yeah.
But the point is well taken. The point is well taken.
So, anyway, so similarly, and I too can care less about the premise of real life politics, but just seeing good people trying their hardest to work together for what's best for everyone, and sometimes getting it wrong and admitting that and struggling. It's a beautiful idea, no matter where it takes place.
It is. And thank you all for coming.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm
so
gonna
say it,
I'm
say it,
gonna
say
do
it.
one last thing. When we started this, for those of you who weren't in the room, I admitted that I have never listened to the podcast because I just haven't. So as everybody was talking, I made a list of the episodes that I'm gonna start with. So you guys have got, I'll at least go as far as Justin Trudeau and Lin-Manuel Miranda. I can't promise I'm gonna get any more than that.
Martin Sheen. Listen to Martin Sheen.
Martin Sheen's, oh good.
He's got a whole episode.
So, but thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
It just-